Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program John Carey, who's VP at MercuryGate, and Al Tulliver, who is Chief Logistics Officer at Redwood Logistics. And today we're going to talk about there's no silver bullet, extracting maximum and ongoing benefit from a TMS. Now, the cost and service benefits from a transportation management system have been, documented, for years. But every company that's gone through that journey knows that evaluating and selecting the right TMS for your company based on your requirements is really just the first step in, realizing, those promised benefits, if you will. There are a lot of other factors involved, in terms of not only getting those short-term, near-term benefits, but getting benefits on an ongoing basis. What are those factors, and how do you make sure that you kind of put all those pieces together? Well, that's going to be the focus of today's episode. And it's great to have both Al and John with us today, who are on the front lines of this every day with shippers and working with companies, looking to, reach that next level of performance with the transportation management. So Al, John, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Adrian. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, thank you both for making the time. Let's go right into the topic. And Al, I'll start with you first. I mean, obviously, both of you are on the front lines of logistics and transportation. I mean, what are you hearing, from shippers in terms of, the challenges they're facing in their day-to-day operations today?
Well, so many people, it's amazing, are just faced with lack of visibility and control. And, when we talk to lots of different shippers, sometimes we ask for data and they can't provide anything because they don't have access to it. So that seems to be one of the predominant things that we hear from people. But, really everybody is faced with cost pressures. People are trying to figure out how do they eliminate waste? How do they reduce costs? And that's another big thing that we're hearing from lots of people is how can we streamline our process? How can we become more efficient? How can we take waste out of our operation? And that tends to be, an overriding theme when we talk to lots of different shippers, ranging from, kind of small to large, all kinds of different industries. We tend to see those same kind of themes come up.
Yeah, interesting. It never ceases to amaze me how difficult it is for companies to answer those basic questions, such as, where's my shipment, and how much did we spend in transportation this quarter, right? I mean, it's amazing. John, how about you in your role? I mean, what are you hearing and seeing from shippers out there?
Yeah, so I agree with Al. I think the key thing that we see is that they're looking at technology providers to help them stay relevant and try and future-proof their business. But we have to acknowledge that, the pace of change that our shippers are experiencing is accelerating at an unprecedented rate. Just last year, and Adrian, I know you've spoken about this, we had the first drone delivery from Amazon in the UK, 16 minutes from pick to doorstep. I mean, that's a new paradigm shift that all shippers are now trying to get their heads around. You had Anheuser-Busch and Otto, first driverless delivery across an American motorway. We have Beijing now connected to 15 major European capitals, including London. The paradigm of the slow boat from China is being disrupted by China, who can now get goods to Europe faster than they ever could. I think it's a 2-week journey. So these experiences that are happening around shippers are putting an ever-increasing pressure on them. And they're looking at technology to give them the visibility, give them the data analytics so that they can make the best decision, so that they can identify the opportunities and the competitive advantage and strike while the iron's hot. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, you see the world is certainly, shrinking. Those time, this push towards time definite delivery, right? Yeah. So it used to be in the past that, 2-day delivery was fine, right? And then you went from 2-day delivery to making it 2-day delivery and free. But we all know that there is no such thing as free delivery, right? Somebody ultimately has to pay. And now you're talking about, not only same day, but even, within an hour, right? So yeah. I think what's happening on the e-commerce side is, interesting. And like you said, a lot of these emerging technologies, whether it's driverless trucks or drones, certainly, continue to, create challenging environments for, and interesting environments for shippers around the world. So Al, let me go back to you now. I mean, when you look at all these, challenges and, and some of these are opportunities as well. I mean, what are some of the hurdles or roadblocks that shippers have to overcome to effectively, address these challenges or to achieve their goals and objectives?
Well, so much of it really depends on the organization itself. And that's part of what we want to do is really understand the uniquenesses of the organization. But kind of at a broad level, a lot of the things that we see and encounter when people are struggling with how to go about implementing some technology is, it runs the gamut from lack of tools, lack of resources, lack of people, lack of experience. Change management is a really big piece that I don't think a lot of people understand and really prepare for as well as they should. And so that's a really important one that doesn't get a lot of attention, but really can have the ability to either make a project successful or make it unsuccessful, or at least make it more challenging. And then I think making sure that you've got the right level of stakeholder support and management support in the organization. Those are some really important roadblocks that we try to get organizations to think about before we really embark on anything. Because if they're not prepared, it doesn't matter what kind of technology we have or what kind of process we have. If the organization isn't ready for it, it's going to be a difficult road.
No, great point. I think just to echo that, I think that, what I've seen and I think what separates some of the leaders from the laggards out there is when you see supply chain, logistics, transportation have a seat at that executive table that's really involved, in the strategy end of things, is really involved in, looking at the big picture versus, what I often hear from a lot of shippers is, transportation's the last to find out about things. And then they're kind of put in the position to have to be the hero, right, to succeed in that area, right? John, how about you? What are your thoughts on that and some of the hurdles and roadblocks that shippers face?
Yeah, very aligned. And it's one of the reasons why we work so closely with Redwood. I mean, it's that effective planning, scoping, and avoiding scope creep. I mean, logistics professionals are facing a challenge of understanding all the areas of the enterprise where logistics touch or are connected and can have an impact. And then helping create that vision within the enterprise of what the change could mean. What is the primary driver? Is it cost reduction? Is it a new revenue opportunity? Is it competitive advantage? What are the three things that are going to be important, at the executive level that people are going to actually put their money behind and put their effort and their support behind. And change management is critical. So often, I've come into MercuryGate and you hear the stories about customers who buy the technology and then try and map the technology to their legacy process. And the amount of time you spend talking with the customer to convince them that they could do something quicker, easier, faster, for a better result. But if we can get into that part of the conversation much earlier, now the technology is an enabler. And in fact, the customer is going to get a much more return on their investment at a much faster time to value. And that's one of the things that we've certainly experienced working with clients with Redwood.
Right. I think that, the way I've heard others, characterize it is really trying to, get away from, well, this is the way we've always done it. Right. Or, just trying to challenge, the status quo is such a big hurdle, for companies, especially if they've, you have a comfort level with what right. And sometimes there's fear of the unknown or fear of change that holds back a lot of companies. So Al, let's talk about technology now, and specifically, transportation management systems. Like kind of I alluded to in my opening remarks, many companies spend a lot of time and effort putting together an RFP and evaluating vendors and ultimately selecting a solution that kind of aligns with their needs and requirements. But, then when it comes time to successfully implementing the TMS and going after those, those promised savings and benefits, they fall short of their goals. Why is that? I mean, in other words, if a TMS is by itself is not a silver bullet, then what else is needed to, extract maximum and ongoing benefit from a TMS?
Well, the TMS is much like any other technology. You have a small percentage of the population that really understands it and really utilizes it well. And I think the same thing applies with the TMS. The power of the technology is there. All the functionality is there. What it comes down to then is really being able to understand how it applies to your business and really being able to make sure that you leverage that. You know, it's interesting. We talk to different shippers, you know, and one of the things that often comes up is we talk about, you know, people don't know what they don't know. And part of what we try to do is help them understand what they should know. And that can change the conversation tremendously. I mean, you think about just about any kind of environment, if it's the only time you've done it, think about all the other people you could talk to that have gone through it before and have learned the trials and tribulations. And so if they leverage the resources and they've got the right technology, they're able to extract that. I mean, if you look at the TMS technology that MercuryGate has, I mean, we use that technology. We believe that that technology is the best that's out there for a broad base of shippers. And we believe that it has all the different capabilities that any shipper would really want or need. But so much of it comes down to configuring that technology to be able to understand how it applies to your business. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short, because whether it's the project management or, like we talked earlier, change management, if people really don't think about that and they don't think about how they're going to do things differently, it will break down. As you mentioned earlier, you can't just keep doing what you've always done. You can't do it the old way. And that's hard for people to get, you know, really comfortable with. And people are fearful about what it might mean to their jobs. It might, you know, they're fearful about how it changes their work. But the people that really embrace it and the people that really get involved with it, in the end, actually feel like they're able to devote their time to more value-added activities as opposed to all the old manual things and all the old frustrating things that they used to have.
No, that's a great point. It kind of reminds me, you know, kind of the importance of having a, you know, a super user, if you will, or someone that really truly understands the full breadth and depth of the tool and knows how to really use it effectively, and knows, even more importantly, as change occurs, how to, you know, make the necessary changements or configurations to, you know, align with the new operating reality that occurs there. So it kind of reminded me of this, you know, I forget where I was, but it was at a conference, and the gentleman was up on stage and he said, look, it doesn't matter if you hand me a Stradivarius violin or, you know, a $5 one from Walmart. It's going to sound equally bad if I play it, right? Because I don't know how to, I'm not a violinist. I don't know how to play it, right? Which goes to the importance of really, you know, a TMS is a tool, and it could be a Stradivarius or it could be, you know, a lower end one. But at the end of the day, you're going to get the value out of it if you truly know what you're doing and how to leverage it, you know, effectively. So I think that was, yeah, as you were talking there, it kind of reminded me of that story. John, you know, kind of to, you know, complement that side of things. I mean, what I hear from many shippers is, you know, what they need to achieve their desired outcomes is the right mix of technology, services, and consulting, and that the right mix obviously will vary by company, right? You know, whether you're a small company, a large company, whether you have the resources in-house or not, you know, there's a lot of different factors that go into determining what the right mix, but it's usually some combination of the three. So there's an opportunity there for, you know, from my perspective, for technology vendors and logistics service providers and shippers to work more, you know, collaboratively together, which is, you know, what your companies are doing, obviously. You know, can you share a little bit of how, you know, that collaboration works, and what are some use case examples?
Yeah, absolutely. And it builds on the point that Al was making, is that, you know, at MercuryGate, we view our technology platform as an enabler. Now, that's our core and our focus, and we're going to make sure it's the best in market, it's the most flexible, it's the most scalable. But I think I've heard this word maybe 3 or 4 times that we've said, it's about understanding the shipper's business. And no one company is going to be able to fully understand all of the nuances of any other company's business. And that's why, you know, at MercuryGate, we differentiate by focusing on partnerships. Now that goes from our Technology Alliance program, a really vibrant program with partners who add incremental value to the platform and allow customers to get even more out of a single MercuryGate TMS portal to our new program, and Redwood is our premier logistics integrator. What we recognized is customers wanted the best operational experience of an LSP. They wanted the best technology tool for a TMS. But what they also needed was resources, and different resources at different points in their journey. So working with Redwood, we actually crafted a new partnership, and they were our first ever and are the first logistics integrator in the world, focused on the domestic market. But what these guys do is they can provide consulting in helping the customer understand what their true requirements are. They can provide support in configuring and mapping our enterprise cloud solution to meet their specific TMS needs today, while keeping them informed and educated about the new opportunities that become available to them as they continue to progress and staying close to that super user. And then most importantly, where shippers say to them, hey, look, I love everything that's happening. I just don't have the expertise or the resources. These guys have the expertise and resource to come in and operate on the shipper's behalf. And that's more than a 3PL function. That's really embedding yourself in the shipper's business and being part and invested in their success on a daily basis. So, we think it's something unique. We've engaged with Redwood on this. We love the way they engage with customers. We love the fact that the conversation is predominantly all about the customer and the customer's need. And we definitely see that as something that shippers find refreshing and are really responding well to.
Great. And I don't know if Al, you want to touch upon this, or John, just a quick, just for clarification, obviously, that right, we talked about the right mix, right? So of technology, services, consulting, in the technology piece there, and the right mix today for a shipper as they engage and collaborate with let's say both your companies might be different. Where they start today might be different a year from now, 2 years from now. So part of it is really that right mix is as it ebbs and flows. The way that they work, or shipper would work with your respective companies will also, change. Is that right?
Yeah. I think we all have to have skin in the game. So we'll work with Redwood and make sure that they are the advocate for the customer's need. At the same time, we're engaging with the customer. They're a customer on our platform. So they'll be at our events, they'll be communicating their needs to us, but we'll focus that on the vision side of things. And what Redwood can do is they can optimize and customize what's there today to make sure there's continuous improvement in the service that's being delivered. Al?
Yeah, I think, John mentioned it early on in our conversation here. Things are changing at a rapid pace. Even if you just go back the last couple of years and think about the new technology that's out there and some of the developments, people need to have a very nimble and adaptable environment so that they can plug into these new technologies and leverage them without creating all kinds of chaos in their existing infrastructure. And I think that's going to continue to happen. New technology is always being talked about. More and more things are coming up. And again, it's just like, you don't want to stay back in 1970 in terms of the way that you were dealing with things. We want people to be embracing this new technology because, again, it's in our estimation, the more that we can automate things. Again, the technology can't solve all the problems, but where we can automate and where we can provide greater visibility at a faster rate, that's what we want to do, because now people can make decisions better informed and they can spend their time on things that really require their attention. And so I think it's just going to continue to evolve, but people need to be flexible and dynamic and realize that the world is going to continually change and they need to change along with it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think what I hear from a lot of shippers is that, and part of the reason that they reach out to partners, such as yourself, is they look internally and they see what's going to be required to get the investment internally, either for technology or the investment internally to get more resources to do what they want. And for whatever reasons, or there's a variety of reasons, the faster path to action and the faster path to, getting to where they need to go is not internally in some cases, but actually working with, with partners such as yourselves, because they view that as the faster path and the less riskier path, just because there's too many hurdles, like the ones we talked about earlier, to overcome internally. And kind of building on what we just talked about, Al, and then John, you can comment as well. I mean, like I mentioned, the transportation and logistics landscape is continuously changing. So, what shippers need tomorrow to succeed is, going to be different than what they need today. So what's required from a, services standpoint, and what's required from a technology standpoint, to help shippers keep pace, with what's required, and help them achieve these ongoing benefits from a TMS?
Well, it's interesting. I've not yet met with any shipper that tells me they've got an abundance of IT resources. So they're scarce. They're scarce in every organization. And what we're trying to do is figure out how to facilitate it so that it doesn't distract from their other activities or disrupt their business. So our whole approach has been, how do we try to simplify it so that we don't require lots of involvement from their IT resources, and they can continue to focus on their core business, and we can focus in on how do we help them with this specific TMS technology. So, our whole objective has been, how do we streamline that whole integration of the systems process? And we believe we've come up with some technology and some abilities to be able to do that, to condense that time frame, because nobody wants to think about a project that's going to take them a year to implement and it's going to take dozens of resources. This technology with TMS and the way that we configure things and the way that we integrate things, it doesn't take that long. I mean, in many cases, these systems are up and running and integrated within months. So it's a very short window. It doesn't require lots of attention, but it needs to be set up in a fashion like we were just talking about, that's going to be able to adapt to change. You don't want to have a fixed platform that is going to be difficult to change or plug in new technology. And the way that the technology is set up from MercuryGate is they've got an ecosystem that as new technology comes, it's available. We want to be able to make sure that those shippers that are using the technology can leverage it as soon as possible. So that's really kind of the way that we're focused on things. Again, building it so that it's easy to implement, it's fast to implement, it's at a lower cost, but it's also built in a fashion that it can continue to evolve as time goes on.
Great. And just to kind of echo what you had, talked about earlier, what we talked about earlier in terms of, the importance of people in all this. I would assume that from a logistics service provider standpoint, that's one of the investments that you need to make as well, is in terms of having the right people in place within your organization that is able to support the clients and understands the technology, understands the best practices or leading practices out in the industry, and can bring that to the table to your customers. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. What's really great about working in a logistics environment like this is we have people that wake up every day and are passionate about logistics. And lots of shipper organizations, people have arrived at transportation or the traffic roll or whatever just over time, and they may have been there for a long period of time, and it's just kind of been their job. We have people that really are excited about it and really want to be able to leverage their skills and their expertise. But it's like everything else. Finding good quality resources is tough. We're focused on logistics, so we attract those folks. Sometimes shippers have a harder time finding and retaining those kind of qualified individuals. And so that's where we can provide some expertise and even some resources when they need them.
Great. John, what about you from a kind of a technology, perspective? What are some of the key things that are required, to keep pace with the change that's out there in the transportation logistics landscape?
Yeah, so I think it's a commitment to customer need and a commitment to understanding how the industry is changing. So when you look at MercuryGate, we actively describe our solution as enterprise software in the cloud, and it's a very deliberate descriptor because what we have is the robust kind of enterprise engine up there, but with the scalability and flexibility that you come to expect from the cloud. Now, that's juxtaposed to the market's experience of SaaS as very quick, very easy, but very prescriptive and very limited. And so I think what we're committed to is continuing to maintain that lead and maintain that kind of powerful engine that is open and able for our vibrant ecosystem to plug into, and working on a best of breed. You know, we're not looking to become the monolithic player that becomes a single throat to choke. We understand that our solutions are better when we're working with partners who wake up every morning and think about, carrier rates. We work with partners who wake up every morning, their entire business is predicated on reading ELD data and all the new opportunities that come from there and the new legislation. You know, we wake up with partners who like Redwood, they think every day, how can I help my customer's business be more successful? And how can I do that from within the logistics scope? And because they're working with us and they're aware of the roadmap and they're feeding into it and they're plugged into the market, we think that group of voices and that community of listening is going to help us stay ahead of the curve and anticipate customers' needs before they even articulate them. That would be our nirvana. And you've got a group of people who are committed to that.
Yeah, those are all great points. I would think too. I mean, the other buzz terms you hear a lot in the industry, and we kind of touched upon a little bit here, is the importance of flexibility, the importance of configurability.
Yeah.
And I think those are becoming much more important from a technology standpoint. The ability, as business requirements change, as you want to configure, want to enable new business processes, the ability for the technology to easily and the users to easily configure the tool to align with the new operating realities, right? Yeah. And also being easy to use, right? So it expedites training and things like that. So I would think those are other factors that are also important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to make sure we've just revved our user interface. We're going to continue to work on delighting the user and putting things that are relevant to them, in as few a set of screens as possible. We're also going to make sure that we're anticipating the ability to plug in new functionality, either MercuryGate generated functionality or our ecosystem functionality, and serve up either that data or that full screen from within the TMS portal. The objective is to keep focused on the needs of that customer. And then I think from the configurability perspective, that's where a client like Redwood, who's working with the customer on their journey, understands the right inflection point where they're organizationally ready to take that next step. We can sometimes, I come from the technology space and we can get very excited about the technology and we can think the technology is a panacea and everyone should run to the technology, but the technology is only relevant if that's the problem you're facing today. And that's why we work with partnerships and we value the partnership with Redwood, is they're able to help a customer understand when that technology is going to be relevant to their business and how they can get the most out of it now rather than, investing ahead of the curve.
Excellent points. Well, gentlemen, we're running short on time here, so I'm just going to go right to my last question. And now maybe I'll start with you, and then John, you can, add your thoughts as well. As a way to wrap up, I mean, what questions should shippers ask themselves to assess whether they have all the pieces that we talked about, required to extract maximum and ongoing benefit from a TMS?
Well, I think it's really critical that organizations take a hard look at where they're at and where they want to go. To me, that's really the starting point, and then identify what goals do they have that they want to accomplish after this technology is implemented. Again, then they need to go back and think about how prepared is the organization, how much conflict are they going to deal with. It goes back to that change management component. Are they prepared for that? Are they willing to take on the effort internally to help people get comfortable with the way things are going to work? Because again, you can implement the technology and you can demonstrate the ROI, and virtually every organization that doesn't have a TMS can demonstrate there's going to be a return on it very quickly, because the MercuryGate TMS it's scalable, it's affordable, it has all the functionality that people need. But if you design the best system and the best process and people don't follow it, you're not going to get the value out of it.
Great point. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would echo that. What's the drive for change? Is your organization ready and committed? And then when you look at technology partners, what do you need from the technology now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Are the partners you're looking at, the technology vendors, have they shown that commitment to delivering? And then finally, I'd look at the partner ecosystem. I grew up in partnering, and organizations with a vibrant technology alliance group with a vibrant set of partnerships of customers that customers can leverage in order to get a far more personalized engagement. That's a vendor making an investment in saying, we need to know about you in order for you to get the ROI, rather than we need to dictate to you, how you should be running your business. And those are the things that I would think about as a shipper.
Great. Well, like I always say at the end of all our episodes, we always just manage to scratch the surface on this topic. But I think we covered a lot of the bases today, and you provided some great insights and advice for our viewers. So, Al, John, thank you again for making the time to be with us today.
Thank you. The conversation was enjoyable.
Thanks, Adrian. It was great. Cheers, Al.
Great. And I want to thank those of you that joined us today. If you are watching this episode on demand at either the MercuryGate website or on Talking Logistics, and you'd like to ask Al or John a question, you can post it there, and I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you all for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.